Hello everyone, welcome to part 9 of manual software testing interview questions, and in this video we are going to cover another 10 important manual testing interview questions which are as follows. The first question that we are going to discuss today is what is error guessing. Then we'll discuss about exploratory testing, what is risk-based testing, what are some of the techniques you apply for risk-based testing, what are project risks, what are product risks, what is the difference between product and project risk, what is risk management, what is an incident, and what is a defect or bug. So these are the 10 questions that will be part of this particular video. So let's get started. So the first question, what is error guessing? Right. So error guessing is nothing but it's a test design technique wherein the experience of the tester, the experience or their knowledge about the particular system or the overall domain is utilized to find or to identify where the defects might be present. Okay, so that's what the error guessing is. Basically, you are guessing as an experienced person. I can go ahead and if I have been in experience or if I have been having a lot of experience in banking domain, I know what all systems are being used in the banking ecosystem, right? So as part of my experience, I can easily identify what all systems are there. For example, there will be a system for transaction processing, there will be a system for customer onboarding, there will be a system for managing all the interest rates and all of those calculations. So many different systems are being present in the banking ecosystem, right? So if I am the experienced person, I can apply my experience and know if there is some new project going on and if there is an integration between the existing system in the bank, then I'll be able to identify where things can go wrong or which particular system is more complex and where we should be putting more effort into, right? And it is mostly done by experienced testers because it is not for the fresher who is absolutely new to the domain, doesn't know, doesn't understand all the system. It is done by someone who is experienced and has the existing knowledge of the domain as well as the systems. Error guessing has no rules, right? So it's basically from your previous skills. You do not apply any sort of rules as such from the previous skills. Whatever you understand about the system, about the software, about the implementation, based on that experience, the tester comes up with the test cases using the error guessing test design technique. Okay, so that's what error guessing is. Now, what is exploratory testing, right? So exploratory testing is another test design technique that you can say, and as the name exploratory is there, it is also a testing that is done mostly by the experienced person. Okay, and exploratory testing is a hands-on approach in which testers are involved with minimal planning and maximum test execution. Okay, so there is no sort of planning, upfront planning that is done when exploratory testing is starting. The maximum execution is done. Tester will start exploring the system. As the word exploratory, the tester will start exploring the system, and based on that exploration, they'll go ahead and navigate to different path of the system or the software. For example, an e-commerce application. If I have to go ahead and start testing an e-commerce application or do some sort of exploratory testing as an experienced person, I know what all different systems and modules are being implemented. So I'll straight away go ahead with the execution. I'll go ahead and log in, and then I'll try to add certain items in the cart. I'll try to browse through different categories and then add more items. I'll try to add the maximum number of items that are allowed, then try to go ahead and check out and see what all business flow process, how the software actually behaves with any of these navigation paths, right? So based on all of those understanding and the path that I follow accordingly, as a tester, I'll go ahead and explore more path and variations and prepare the documentation along the way. Okay, so the second point, as the testers do minimum planning, maximum test execution, they get the in-depth idea about the software functionality. Once tester starts getting insight into the software, he can make decisions to what to test next, right? So any new application, say for example you are testing, so exploratory testing testing is more suitable if you do not have maximum documentation. You straight away start using the application, and then based on your understanding about the application and the flow that you have followed till now, you take further flows and action, try to test the particular system whether all of the functionalities work proper or not. And in exploratory testing, focus is more on how the software works. Test design and test execution activities are performed in parallel without creating much test documentation. So there is minimal documentation. As the tester goes along with the testing, they keep preparing the design and execution results and documentation. So mostly the notes, they keep taking the note, which can be later shared with the relevant stakeholder about the exploratory testing. And a test login is undertaken as the test execution is done. Key aspects of testing, any further testing that is required is also documented. Any defects that are found is also documented as along the tester goes ahead with the exploratory testing. And mostly you will see the last point, it is performed by the skill tester, but it's not hard and fast. Basically, why skill tester? Because skill tester or a person who has understanding about the domain will be having a better idea of the real flow that needs to be taken, right, that the customer will be using. So if, say for example, I have an experience in e-commerce, I have experience in telecom, I'll know the business rules that end user will usually follow in that particular domain. So anyone who is skilled in that particular domain is the right fit to do the exploratory testing rather than the person who is absolutely new to that particular domain, because they do not understand the real use case and the real business process. So even though people can go ahead and start the testing if they are not part of that particular, or they do not have experience in that particular domain, but the efficiency of those test cases or people who are testing who are new to that particular domain will be less as compared to the skilled testers or the testers who are experienced in that particular domain and the tool and technologies. Okay, so that's what basically the exploratory testing in a nutshell is all about. Okay, so let's move on to the 83rd question. All right, so 83rd question is, what is risk-based testing? So risk-based testing is nothing but it utilizes the prioritized risks to initiate or to basically prioritize the test cases. What module will be executed or what module will be tested first based on the risk categorization, right? So risk-based testing uses risk to prioritize appropriate test cases during the project, right? Now, whenever there is a risk, right? So a risk might not be, a risk won't be similar to each and every, or the level of risk won't be same for each and every module in a product or a software. So for example, if you are testing a banking application, what are the modules that are highly and very frequently used by the customer, right? So those modules need to be tested very well because customer interaction with those modules is very high. So obviously those sort of modules will be having a high risk. Okay, or are there any modules which are very low used modules, but in case if they fail, the whole system will be brought down, or the whole system will stop working. So obviously that particular module will also be categorized in high risk. So the categorization of the modules based on different aspects, if some module fails, if some software fails, what will be the business loss in terms of dollars, what will be the customer dissatisfaction, all of these different criteria are used to identify what is the level of risk for any of these modules, okay, in the application. And based on that risk categorization, when testers start categorizing their test cases based on the similar priority as the risk of those specific module, that is risk-based testing. So if, say for example, the module A, B and C are categorized as high risk, then the test cases that are within those modules will be kind of categorized as high priority test cases to be executed, so that everything or most of the thing in those modules is basically executed or tested properly. Anything which is low priority, there will be low or less priority test cases that will be associated with that. So whenever the risk of a particular software or module is the basis of prioritizing the test cases for the testing team, that is risk-based testing. Okay, so this is basically the crux of it. So you'll see that in risk-based testing, we organize the testing effort in such a fashion that it reduces the level of product risk. So if there is a module that is high risk, and if you have tested that properly, you have a confidence, then obviously obviously the risk is mitigated or reduced in that particular case, right? So the risk to system quality are identified, and that knowledge is used in test planning, preparation, and execution. So in risk-based testing, based on the risk analysis, whatever the risk priority is defined for the module, testers use that, test manager, test lead use that for test planning, preparation, and execution. And that is what all risk-based testing is all about. Okay. Now moving on to the 84th question. So what are some of the techniques you applied for risk-based testing? So this can be another question. So if you are an experienced person and going for an interview, you might be asked about the risk-based testing first thing, and then what are some of the techniques you have applied for risk-based testing. So techniques are pretty simple. Whenever you do risk-based testing, okay, you start with the product risk analysis, and some techniques for the risk analysis are reading the requirement, design documents thoroughly and closely, and in the requirement, if there is a risk rating defined for those requirements for those modules, that becomes the basis of your test design. And then brainstorming, having a conversation with the stakeholders, that's another important thing. And then having one-to-one conversation, small group conversation with business and technology to see what are the high risk areas that we need to cater for, right? So these are some of the analysis work that needs to be done by the testing team, mostly test leads and managers, including the testing team, to go through the documentation, having a clear conversation with the business stakeholders and other technology stakeholders to look for the areas that are high risk. And then based on that knowledge, you as a testing team then prioritize your testing accordingly, according to the risk that is identified. Now, in order to avoid the missing things, it is always a good idea. So there might be a possibility that there is a high risk module or the system that has been missed, right? So in order to avoid that sort of scenario that a particular risk categorization has been missed, it is always good to have a checklist of functional and non-functional areas, have the systems in the checklist, have the modules in the checklist, and then based on those system and module, you go ahead and say, when you go ahead with the discussion with the project stakeholders or the technology stakeholders or the business, then you go ahead and elaborate that these are the systems that we have taken into the account for testing. Is this the full list that is in scope? So solution architects will be able to guide you in that particular case. Yes, all of these are the only systems that are being touched and are in scope of this particular release. So based on that, now you have the checklist. Now you will be able to go ahead and quickly get the categorization of risk for all those modules. When you have the checklist, everyone is across that yes, these are the only impacted system or the systems that are being built for which the testing needs to be done as well. So checklist is very, very important of the functional and non-functional areas, not only the systems and the modules, but also the functional and non-functional areas. And then based on that, what priority, what the risk appetite is, or what the risk level is for those areas, and then you design or you target your testing accordingly. Now, some of them, these checklist items basically can be like functionality, localization, usability, reliability, performance, and supportability. So there can be multiple checklists. One is for the systems and modules. Then second one is based on the functional, non-functional aspect. So that will help you. A tabular format will definitely going to help you, right? So these are some of the techniques that you can apply in the risk-based testing. Now, in order to explain this to the interviewer, you can basically go ahead with some of the key points that are mentioned on the slide, but also you can go ahead and mention about the checklist items, right? So creating the tabular format around the system. So in the first column, you can put the system and module and note down all the module. And in the next column, you can have the risk level for that particular module. So something you can explain. Nobody is looking for very elaborate and perfect sort of checklist. But when interviewer asks something around this, they are looking for your understanding whether you will be able to basically perform this activity when you are given a particular project to work on, right? So that's 84th question. Now let's move on to the 85th question, which is what are project risks? Okay, so we have understood about risk-based testing and some of the techniques. Now, what exactly are project risks? So project risk as the word project, right? So whenever you are working in a project, there are certain risks associated with the project, okay? And the project risk is nothing but an uncertain, event that may or may not occur, right? So what exactly is risk? It's not about project and product risk. A risk in general is something or some uncertain event that might occur. And if it occurs, what will be the impact, right? So say for example, we are just going or driving a car, right? So what is the level of risk when somebody is driving a car to crash? Okay, so that depends on the expertise of the person who is driving. Okay, so if your driver is absolutely sort of new, the risk is high. If the driver is very experienced, then the risk is very low, right? So this uncertain event of crashing a car it depends on certain conditions, right? So that's what basic risk is all about, right? When we say project risk, a risk which is associated with any of the project detail, completion of the project, right? Any of the deviations into the project, that is project risk, okay? And some of the project risk could be around the timeline, excessive requirements that are given to you, and the time is less to deliver those, right? So that is obviously a risk, right? Because there is hundreds of requirements and the people are less, resources are less, and the time to complete all of that work is less, right? So obviously the project will be in risk. You won't be able to deliver that on time. So that is one of the project risks. Shortage of staff, shortage of skills. You are trying to deliver a rocket, but the staff that you have doesn't even know about the rocket science, or they are coming from biology background, right? So shortage of skill. If you are trying to deliver a rocket, then you need to have the skills or the scientists who know rocket science, right? So shortage of skills, lack of clarity, time crunch, any of these factors, low performance, scope creep, right? So you started with 10 user stories or 100 user stories, and then business is pumping in new user stories, new requirement. So all of these factors are related to project risk. They will put the project delivery into risk. So any risk around people, resources, timeline, shortage skill is a project risk. Okay, any risk which puts the delivery of the project in an uncertain event, or the project won't be delivered on time, that is what a project risk is all about, right? Now in similar line, there is a product risk. Okay, so when we say product risk, what is product risk? So product risk is about the product. Okay, so whatever product you are building, whatever software you are building, okay, so a product will be built by a team. So any risk associated with the team, timeline, skill, whosoever is building it, that is project risk that we have understood. Now any risk which is specific to a product, that product might fail. Okay, we are creating a banking application, and what is the possibility that the system might or might not fail, or it might fail to satisfy end users expectation. So if there is anything specific to the module of the product or the product itself, that the product is not going to satisfy end users requirement, that is product risk. And product risks are sometimes also referred to as quality risk. So say for example, an e-commerce application you are developing, any risk around the e-commerce application that the customer is not able to log in, customer is not able to register. Say for example, everything has been tested, but when the e-commerce app is being launched into the production, when customer clicks on register button and puts all his detail or her detail and clicks on register button, they are getting an error message, a crash, right? So that is a risk of a product, right? It's a product error that might occur. Okay, it's nothing to do with the timeline, resource, or anything. It's a product. So this is these categorization. Anything failure within the product is a product risk, or the possibility of the failure within the product, right? Not necessarily all the risks that are identified for the product will be an outcome. Similar to project risk, not all risks will be an outcome, but if in case they are an outcome, what will be the impact, right? Or how you are going to handle. So that's basically any risk that is associated with product or software, or any module of the product and software is a product risk. risk. Okay, let's move on to the next question. What is the difference between product and project risk, right? So once you know project and product risk, okay, now the difference is very simple. So product risks are related to the product being tested, right? So software application that you are testing, any possibility of the failure within the software and module. However, project risks are the risks that are associated with the project delivery. When you are building a software, will you be able to meet the timeline and deliver the particular project within that particular time frame? Do you have the right set of skill set in the team to build that particular project, right? To build that particular product? Do you have the right amount of work? Is the scope all right? Is the team not overloaded, right? So any of these scope, people, timeline details are the project risk. Okay, now let's move on to the 88th question, which is what is risk management? Now wherever there is a risk, there will be a risk management, right? So this question can come up in the similar line that if there is a risk, there will be a risk management. Now what is risk management? So risk management is nothing but the process of identifying the risk, okay, whether it's a product risk or project risk, analyzing the risk and then mitigating or controlling it. Okay, so any identification of the risk, then analyzing it. Okay, so basically 3-step process: identification, analyzing and mitigation or controlling. Okay, so these 3 activities, whenever you do for a particular risk identification or particular risk in a product or project, that is a risk management. So why risk management? Because in case the risk becomes an outcome in future, right? Risk could be an outcome or could not be, right? It could never happen. So say for example, even though there is a scope creep, the team might be able to extend the hours and may be able to deliver, right? So but in case there is a scope creep and team is not able to extend, there are people who have become sick, then the risk is an outcome, right? So these 3 main activities. First thing is what risk could be possible, or what risks could be possible for a particular project or a product. Then the analysis of that particular risk, and then what steps need to be taken in order to mitigate it or control it, right? Now risk management activities provide a disciplined approach to assess what can go wrong in system or software or project, which risks are important to deal with, and implement action plan to deal with those risks, right? So risk management is a disciplined process, and testing team is closely sort of involved, not very heavily involved, but testing team needs to be across all of the risks, because testing team also raises the risks in the risk register. So any project that you will go on into working, you will see there is a risk register that is being maintained, wherein any person of the team that is part of the delivery can raise the product and project risk. Then the team comes together to analyze. So first thing is identification, which can be done by the team in collaboration or individually whenever someone comes across that this might be a risk, okay, for a particular project or product. Then the team will analyze and then rate that particular risk and then come up with the steps what we need to take or what actions we need to take in order to deal with those risks. For example, I am a test lead or test manager in a particular project. I know that based on the estimation, the requirements that we have will require 10 people to deliver, or the number of test cases that are there will require 10 people to execute those test cases in 2 months, right? Now my team has only 7 people, so I'll go ahead and quickly raise that particular risk in the risk register that this is a risk we might not be able to meet the timeline even after extending the working hours of the 7 team members, right? So that is kind of a risk. Maybe we are able to meet, maybe we are not able to meet. So then that identification has happened. I have logged that particular risk. Then in the analysis phase, the stakeholders will come together, and along with myself, because I have raised the risk, they'll have that discussion why this particular risk, and based on that calculation how many more people we need, right? So then in case they are able to provide that particular number of people at the appropriate point of time, that is basically the action plan. Yes, we will be onboarding more people to go ahead and execute or be part of the team, so that we are able to meet those timeline and execute those test cases in time, right? So that's the implementation of the action plan after discussing the risk. So this is basically how the teams work day to day, right? It's not just, theoretical. This is how actually it happens in the project. Okay. So that's the 88th question around the risk management. Now let's go to the 89th question, which is what is an incident? Okay. So an incident is nothing but any situation in a project, in a product that exhibits a questionable behavior, right? So whenever you are, say, for example, testing something, okay, some module, and there is a questionable behavior, actual is not as expected, that is an incident. Okay. That straight away doesn't become a defect or bug. Okay. Please keep that in mind. An incident straight away doesn't become a bug or a defect. Okay. And bug and defect are used interchangeably in the real projects, right? But there is a basic difference which I'll also cover in upcoming questions. So incident is any situation wherein system behaves or system exhibits questionable behavior. An incident is any event occurring when actual results vary from expected result. Okay. Now you might see that this is similar definition for defects as well, right? But I'll explain why incident and defect, there is a fine difference there. And any inconsistency between actual and expected result caused by test environment, issue with developer code, test data, hardware, invalid expected result, tester mistakes, any inconsistency based because of any of these following points. These are not the complete list, but this is some of the points that might lead to inconsistency, right, between expected and actual. Maybe test data is not correct. The tester that is using the test data that is being used by the tester is not correct, right? Or the test environment setup itself is not correct. Or the version of the product that you are testing against is not updated. The new build hasn't been available on the particular test environment. So there are many reasons that could have the inconsistency of the actual and the expected of particular tested module or the module that is being tested. And any of this inconsistency or a situation wherein there is a questionable behavior is an incident. Okay. Now, when we say, when does this incident become a bug or defect? Okay. So 90th question, what is bug or defect? Okay. So in real projects, in the practical situations, you will see that you are using either defect or bug interchangeably. There is a fine difference, but still it is used most of the time. In the real project, no one will be bothering about, whether you know that fine difference or not. Okay. So there is a difference between incident and bug and defect. So incident is very rarely used, but you need to be aware of what exactly an incident is, because incident is not used in testing, but there are other areas into the project that wherein you will be using the incident, and incident will turn into bug or defect. Okay. Now what exactly is a defect? Okay. A defect is again a variation or deviation of the software application from end user's requirement or original business requirement. Okay. A software defect is an error in coding which causes incorrect or unexpected result from the software program which does not meet actual requirement. Okay. So any variation due to coding or any variation in the software because of the end user requirement wherein software does not meet the end user requirement is a defect. Okay. An incident is a defect or bug only when the root cause of that incident is some problem with the item being tested. Okay. So when you are testing an application, if there is a specific problem only with that particular system or software, that is what defect or bug is. Okay. Now if the problem is because of the test data, if the problem is because of the wrong test environment being used by the tester, if the variation or questionable behavior or variation between actual and expected result was because of the incorrect steps followed by the tester, that doesn't become a defect or bug. That is an incident. Incident will be logged, and then triage will happen. The people in the team, the testing team and the developer, they'll go ahead and analyze that incident, and based on that analysis, they'll then come up with whether it's an actual bug that needs to be fixed either in the requirement, there is a gap in the requirement, or this is actual miss in the code that needs to be fixed in the software code. Based on that, the incident becomes a bug or okay. And there is a basic difference between bug and defect, but I'll cover that later. As of now, incident becomes a bug or defect only when the reason of that particular variation from expected to actual is the product or the code, right? So the product that is being tested. Nothing related to, incorrect test data or incorrect steps being followed. There could be many reasons of that variation. So if there are other reasons of that variation, that incident is not categorized as a bug or defect. It is just left as an incident and then marked as appropriately into the defect management tool, right? So that's the basic difference between incident and bug. So that's the last question of this particular part 9 of manual testing interview questions. Please do share and subscribe, and I hope this was helpful. In the next video, I'll cover another 10 very important manual testing interview questions and answers with examples. So thank you very much for watching.